Rachel Reeves is set to impose a £24 billion tax increase to protect Labour from Nigel Farage, and taxpayers will bear the cost. A financial analyst at JP Morgan estimates that Reeves will need to levy this significant tax hike in her upcoming budget to address the widening deficit in public finances. Deutsche Bank has also warned that increased taxes are now almost certain. Hello viewers, welcome to UK Pancakes. If you're new here, please don't forget to subscribe and click the notifications bell so you don't miss any insights about UK elites. Reeves is retreating after Labour suffered a significant defeat to Reform UK in recent local elections, causing concern in Downing Street. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has abandoned efforts to limit public spending and is preparing to initiate a taxpayer-funded spending spree to counter the Farage threat. And yes, you will be the one paying for it. Reeves has already utilised taxpayer money to win favour with public sector unions that support Labour, granting inflation-busting pay increases without demanding any corresponding productivity improvements. Now, she is ready to increase spending again, not for the nation's benefit, but to salvage Labour's declining support in the polls. Taxes are already at their highest level since World War II. Economic growth is sluggish, and the government's financial credibility is deteriorating. Reeves once vowed to make difficult decisions, but that pretense has ended. Her attempt to eliminate the winter fuel payment for 10 million pensioners backfired, yielding only £1.5 billion in savings while provoking a strong backlash from within the Labour Party and a rise in pension credit claims. Plans to control rising disability benefits also fell apart after Deputy Prime Minister Rayner publicly called for tax increases instead. Instead of supporting his Chancellor, Starmer has shifted into a defensive mode. He is now reconsidering the two-child benefit cap, despite the £3.4 billion annual cost of removing it, in addition to the £1.5 billion needed to reverse the winter fuel payment cut. All of this is merely to keep Reform UK at bay. Reeves began her term with promises of tough choices but now finds herself trapped. The National Institute of Economic and Social Research suggests she may need £30 billion in tax hikes to remain solvent, while Alan Monks at JP Morgan estimates the figure at £24 billion. Regardless, it's a substantial amount. And keep in mind, this is in addition to last year's record £40 billion tax increase and an extra £30 billion in borrowing. JP Morgan has indicated that slower growth will cost us £9 billion, and we will also face a £7.3 billion impact from Donald Trump's trade tariffs, despite Starmer's agreements. The International Monetary Fund has recommended that Rachel Reeves refine her fiscal policies to avoid the necessity of emergency spending cuts, as it updated its growth forecasts for the UK this year. This adds to the pressure from Labour backbench MPs who are outraged by the government's proposed welfare cuts. The Washington-based organization stated that the Chancellor should explore options to prevent the need for short-term savings during economic downturns. Reeves faced renewed criticism on Tuesday from Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, who stated that his party would restore the winter fuel allowance that Reeves controversially eliminated for most pensioners when Labour took office last year. Last week, Keir Starmer indicated a partial reversal on the winter fuel issue, announcing that payments would be reinstated for some former claimants. On Tuesday, Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson hinted strongly that the government plans to abolish the two-child benefit cap, a promise also made by Farage. Relaxing the fiscal rules could provide Reeves with more flexibility regarding spending cuts. The IMF noted that the current system, established by the previous Conservative government, which involves biannual assessments of public finances by the Office for Budget Responsibility, OBR, is due for reform. The IMF suggested that limiting the OBR's fiscal assessments to once a year during the autumn budget could promote further policy stability. It pointed out that there is significant pressure for frequent changes in fiscal policy, as minor adjustments to the economic outlook can diminish the available leeway within the rules, which are closely monitored by markets and the media. The requirement to align fiscal rules, which mandate that the Chancellor balance the budget without borrowing for everyday expenses, with the OBR's March forecasts compelled Reeves to announce budget cuts during the spring statement, including over £5 billion from the welfare budget. Many Labour backbenchers have also urged a re-evaluation of the fiscal rules, but Reeves and senior Treasury officials have consistently maintained that these rules are non-negotiable. In addition to recommending that OBR forecasts be conducted annually, the IMF proposed a process to prevent minor breaches of fiscal rules from necessitating corrective actions outside the autumn budget. However, it cautioned that additional tax increases or spending cuts might still be required if shocks occur, emphasizing that failing to adhere to the rules could provoke a negative reaction from the markets. The IMF has revised the UK's projected growth rate for this year to 1.2%, up from 1.1%, partially reversing a previous downgrade from the expected growth rate of 1.6% for 2025 made in April. The slightly revised forecast is a result of the UK economy's unexpectedly strong performance at the beginning of 2025, with a growth rate of 0.7% recorded in the first quarter of the year. However, the IMF cautioned that trade tensions arising from US tariff proposals will hinder UK economic growth next year. It anticipates that global trade conflicts will reduce growth by 0.3 percentage points for the year, yet it still expects the economy to grow by 1.4% in 2026. IMF officials, who have spent the last 3 weeks evaluating the UK's economy and public finances, commended Reeves for her firm stance on government spending in last October's budget and for allocating surplus funds toward public investment. The IMF noted that financial markets are closely monitoring governments that exceed their spending limits, which adds pressure on UK government bonds. It is crucial to maintain the current strategy and achieve the planned deficit reduction over the next 5 years to stabilize net debt and lessen vulnerability to market pressures, the IMF stated. Luke Iraud, the IMF's UK mission chief, highlighted the importance of adhering to spending limits. Debt has doubled over the past 15 years, and the interest payments are quite substantial. To put it in perspective, the interest payments exceed the capital budget. We are discussing refinements, Iraud said. What we have been talking about with the authorities is how to further facilitate a shift to a single fiscal event each year. One of our recommendations is to conduct only one assessment of the rules annually. The IMF indicated that ongoing tariff disputes and the possibility of a significantly larger US budget deficit could pose risks to its forecast for the UK. It recommended that the Bank of England should continue to gradually lower interest rates while remaining adaptable due to high levels of uncertainty. Reeves remarked, "The UK was the fastest growing economy in the G7 during the first 3 months of this year, and today the IMF has revised our growth forecast upward. We are achieving results for working people through our change plan with 3 new trade agreements that protect jobs, enhance investment, and reduce prices, a pay increase for 3 million workers through the national living wage, and wages surpassing inflation by £1,000 over the past year." Analysts are raising concerns about potential tax increases from Chancellor Rachel Reeves ahead of the government's spending review on June 11. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has suggested that Labour may be considering at least a partial reversal of its earlier commitment to means test the winter fuel payment for pensioners. Additionally, reports indicate that Reeves is planning significant spending in red wall constituency areas to counter the electoral threat from Reform UK. With the International Monetary Fund, IMF, urging the Chancellor to relax her stringent fiscal policies, increased government spending seems inevitable. However, the question remains, how will this be funded? Here are 5 tax increases that Rachel Reeves may consider. In recent years, experts have warned the British public about fiscal drag, which occurs when tax allowances are frozen during periods of high inflation or rising wages. Consequently, taxpayers find themselves in higher tax brackets. The current thresholds have been frozen since 2021 and are expected to remain so until 2028. Aaron Peake, a personal finance expert at the free credit score service Credibility, stated, "Freezing tax thresholds is one of the simplest ways for any chancellor to generate billions without causing significant political backlash. This is already happening with income tax and inheritance tax, and it wouldn't be surprising if these freezes were extended. As wages gradually increase with inflation, more individuals will end up paying higher rates." It is reported that the Treasury has been in talks with financial leaders regarding the economic impact of reducing the tax-free allowance associated with ISOs. Rajan Lakhani, a financial expert from the cash-saving app Plum, pointed out that more savers may end up losing interest earned to taxes under this policy, which is not specifically a tax rise. He explained, at Plum, our research found that if the cash ISA allowance were to be reduced, the most common alternative for holding this money would be a cash savings account, followed by a current account, rather than investing. Given the effects of fiscal drag from frozen tax thresholds, more individuals would risk exceeding their allowances and thus paying tax on their savings. It would be unfair to penalize people for saving under these circumstances. Some analysts believe that taxing the profits from asset sales could also generate revenue for the Treasury. Currently, Britons must pay capital gains tax on overall gains above the tax-free allowance, which is £3,000 for general asset sales and £1,500 for trusts. Peake added, while tax rates may remain unchanged for now, we've already seen a significant reduction in the annual allowance. This could be further decreased, impacting landlords, second home owners, and anyone cashing in on investments. It's a strategy that raises funds without directly affecting the average worker, making it politically advantageous. Earlier this month, a memo from Deputy Minister Angela Rayner, which was leaked to the press, proposed eliminating inheritance tax relief on AIM shares. This move would go beyond the current reduction to 50% set to take effect in April 2026 and could save Reeves around £1 billion if implemented. Ian Dial, the head of estate planning at Evelyn Partners, remarked, "It's uncertain whether this proposal will resonate with the Chancellor." However, with the Prime Minister also reversing cuts to the winter fuel allowance this week, it's likely that tax-related questions will emerge if the fiscal situation doesn't improve before the autumn budget. Some government officials clearly view the transfer of estates as a viable target for tightening tax regulations. Therefore, regardless of any changes to inheritance tax, IHT, reliefs in the upcoming budget, it would be surprising if we reached the next election without any adjustments. In her memo, Rayner proposed that the Chancellor restore the lifetime allowance for pensions to its previous amount of £1,073,100, which was eliminated by former Chancellor Jeremy Hunt. She referenced the Office for Budget Responsibility's estimate that this would cost the government £800 million each year and argued that reinstating the allowance could generate nearly that same amount. Rayner continued, another possibility could be to establish a new, higher lifetime allowance. For instance, the last Labour government set it at £1.8 million in April 2010, although this would yield less than the £800 million. There are two additional proposals that might be worth considering, but they could be more controversial and may take longer to implement. Thanks for watching till the end. Drop your thoughts in the comments section. We hope to see you in our next UK Pancakes.